Hello and welcome back to this week's GG Weekend Watch. We hope you all had a fantastic Cheltenham and thank you so much for coming back to join us because the flat season is officially starting this weekend. We have an eclectic array of races. We have all weather action. We still have the jumps. Don't worry, jumps fans. We still have a couple of races to cover for you from Kelso. But we, of course, have the Lincoln meeting then at Doncaster. So we had better get cracking then. A huge thank you, of course, to SBK for sponsoring this podcast. And we are without Andrew Mount this week. He is on annual leave. But we have a super sub, though, in the form of Rory Delargy to join us then for this week's show. Of course, with Daryl Carter and myself. So we shall begin then at Doncaster itself, where we're actually going to miss the 115 because, to be honest, who really knows with that race? So we're going to quickly skip on then to the 150 at Doncaster. This is the Cammage Trophy Stakes, which is a listed contest for 3-year-olds and over 6 furlongs. So we get to see these sprinters back on the turf with Garrus heading the betting currently. So, Daryl, who do you side with?
It's going to be a tricky weekend this week, I think. A lot of information gathering as opposed to loads of bets. But this is a good opening race. Garrus ticks a lot of boxes. He's got a good record, fresh, solid profile for this sort of race. Trip, ground, both fine, forms very strong. There's a lot not to look. There's not a lot to not like about him, in all honesty. I kind of like horses drawn high here at Doncaster at this meeting. I'm not sure it's going to play such a factor in with this smaller field here today. 7 runners. Look, Garrus for me, he's a horse I think last season that sort of peaked, and he's not going to improve much more than sort of hitting RPRs of 114, 110, 111. I think that's him at his peak. Now, his form is very, very strong. The likes of his Ascot second to Dream of Dreams at Royal Ascot and the Diamond Jubilee. Fantastic piece of form. You'll read comments there that says closest at the finish. But really, he's not one of these horses that really closes fast and late. He sort of just maintains his gallop. I think he's vulnerable to something that could improve. Is there something in here that's going to improve? That's probably the key question. Diligent Harry is interesting. He needs quicker ground. So the drying ground for Doncaster is currently good to soft. Drying ground, perhaps good on the day, will be definitely beneficial to him. He's got a nice piece of form from Newbury with Happy Romance, where he perhaps did too much too soon. Better known for his exploits on the all-weather, though. I couldn't see too many reasons to take him on. I did think that this field might split. I thought Mostawaa might try and make the run-in from the lower draw numbers. I thought Just Another Bottle might go with that one. And I thought Bielsa for Kevin Ryan and Kevin Stott, I thought he might track straight to that far out and make his own running, similar to what he did in the Air Gold Cup. If he does that, I'd be quite interested in Bielsa because I do think there is a slight track advantage to being on the near side as opposed to the far side as you look at it through the camera angles. And I just thought Bielsa could be the one that may improve. Got a good record, fresh, has won twice at Doncaster. Needs to pull out a little bit more in this sort of company. But I think you can forgive the last 2 runs at the back end of last season after a hard campaign. And coming here fresh, it's interesting that Kevin Stott jumps on this one rather than just Another Bottle, who was jocked up with Jason Hart. So I thought by Bielsa, providing Kevin was going to try and make his own running down this side of the track.
Yeah, Bielsa then 11-2, a nice price to take on Garrus. Well argued then for his case in comparison as well. Rory, your opinions on this opener, please.
I thought Garrus was a decent bet. I know he's the obvious one, as Daryl said. He ticks the right boxes. He's a shorter price now than you could have got him earlier in the week, but obviously the race has cut up a little bit since then. Conditions will be fine for him. He's got a record after a break of, I think his lifetime record after a break is 1-2-1-2. So he's going to go well fresh. And I'm particularly encouraged by Charlie Hills's form this season. He's got a 32% strike rate in 2022. I wouldn't normally have him down as being a particularly fast out of the blocks trainer, but he's done very well so far with his all-weather runners, and I think he will start the turf season very well as well. So there's nothing hidden about Garrus, and Daryl's probably right that we probably won't see an awful lot more improvement out of him this season. But he is very reliable. He's always going to give you his running. And I thought a few of these weren't guaranteed to be at the best first time out. Just another Bottles, of course, I like an awful lot, but he tends to need runs to hit his peak. He's a tempting price in there given what he did at the end of last season, but I think he's probably not going to be ready first time. I'm not sure that Mostawaa is going to train on from 3 to 4. She was a very likable filly last year, but whether she progresses again as she'll need to, given the weight for age scale, I'm not sure. And I just think there's too much in Garrus's favour for you to try to be difficult and look beyond him. I think everything goes his way in this race.
Yeah, so Garrus to put that good record fresh to good use yet again for all that, I'd say, for Charlie Hills to then hopefully continue his good form that he's been showing then so far. So that's our opening contest done and dusted. We will move on to the 225. This is the Spring Mile handicap for 4-year-olds and over a mile. A pretty open race. So Rory, who wins it?
It's a slightly disappointing race, in a manner of speaking, the Spring Mile, because it's essentially the Lincoln consolation.
Yeah.
And we're used to seeing big fields here because the Lincoln tends to be well oversubscribed. It's not this season. So only 9 runners here. And the horse that I wanted to back in it, hoping to get a big price up, the same horse I backed last season, Mostawaa, who ran very well off a mark of 88 to be placed in this in 2021 with Sylvester de Souza riding for Heather Main. And he comes into this season 5 pounds lower in the weights, but he was a 20-1 shot this time last year. And by dint of the very small field, comparatively speaking, he's going to be much shorter price this time around. And he's a fairly infrequent winner as well. So he's a sort of horse you want to back at a good price each way in races like this. He would have been fine in a bigger field as well. So I'm a little disappointed that it's cut up the way it has. But I think Mostawaa will give you a good run for your money. I'm obviously concerned about the likes of Empirestateofmind and General Lee, who are, who've got the right profile for this. They're 4-year-olds who are improving last back end and should carry that progress forward. So, those two are more obvious on paper than Mostawaa. But Mostawaa is well handicapped on the form he was showing at this time last year. He did lose his way a little bit late in the season, which is why he's dropped to a mark of 83. But I thought he showed a lot more in his reappearance at Kempton last month when 6th behind Sanad. And that would have put him straight for this. So he's ready to run his race, and he will run a solid race, in my view. Whether he's got enough in hand of the improving horses, I'm not entirely sure, but he should reward each way support as long as you still end up with the 8 or 9 runners.
Yeah, exactly. Still just pay attention to the amount of runners you've got there, but he is still available at an each way price and at 6-1 anyway. Like I say, not quite the 20s he was this time last year to place, but if he can just do the same thing again, you won't be crying backing at Mostawaa at that price anyway. Daryl, your assessment of the Spring Mile?
Yeah, I completely agree with everything Rory said.
Oh, wonderful.
Mostawaa's been a horse that's been on my radar for quite some time. I thought I don't know if he lost his way last season or things were just not, he was just not being placed right, really. I mean, I didn't fancy him over a mile 2 at Sandown. But Epsom, when he finished last behind Corazon Espinado, he reared in the gates. And Nottingham was just a bit, I don't know, it just all went a bit wrong. So perhaps he did lose his way. But he started the season off really strongly. I do think he's a well-handicapped horse. Ran a cracker in this behind Artistic Rifles last year. I don't think this is a deeper race as that one was by any means. So very similar to Rory, I'm very disappointed that this cut up so much because I thought he would have gone under the radar. I thought he would have been a nice double-figure price for an each-way bet. And I completely agree with him with the 2 at the top of the market. I thought Empirestateofmind was actually the horse to take out of the race at Redcar when he was behind the Lincoln favourite Mujtaba. I thought he did plenty wrong that day. I thought he was very keen. I thought they waited too long to make a challenge. I thought they gave the leader a free rein up front, and I thought they came all too late. I get the feeling we've not seen the best of this horse just yet. And a strongly run race, a strongly run mile was what he's desperate for. He hasn't had that on a couple of occasions. The one time he did have that was at Ayr, and he was beaten ahead by Ventura Rascal, who again, he just gave first run to, but he finished very, very strongly there. I think he's better than a mark of 83, so I will be siding with him, but I've got massive respect for General Lee, who is a typical improver from the Paul and Oliver Cole yard. Whether or not he might just need it, I think he would probably need it more so than Empirestateofmind. So I'm boring, but I'll stick with the favourite just on the basis that Mostawaa is, if he drifts out on the day to a double figure price, I'll be backing him as well. But for now, I think Empire State of Mind's a fair price given he's got the upwardly mobile profile as opposed to Mostawaa.
Yeah, that's exactly it. But both of the lads are mentioning the same horses really in a roundabout way, but Daryl then letting price dictate him just slightly away from Mostawaa. But as I say, at the time of recording, he's 6-1. But if he does drift out to a fair price, he will also be weighing in with another bet there with Rory. But he's looking more towards the head of the market then for the 225. The 3 o'clock then at Doncaster. We're back over the mile again. This time in the form of the Doncaster Mile Stakes, which is a listed contest of 4-year-olds and over a mile, where Chindit is the short price favourite to be winning this 4-runner race. So, Daryl, is Chindit very much the horse to beat here?
Yeah, and I think he represents a bit of value at 8-11. In all honesty, it's not often I'll ever back a bloody odds on shot. But
I know this is bizarre. You stepped into the twilight zone since Cheltenham. This doesn't sound like you.
Yeah, I have back. I think he should be a 1-3 shot. I genuinely do. I think he's by far the best horse in the race. I don't think he'll have any issue training on. I think his form is far superior to that of anything in the race. I think the second favourite Royal Champion has perhaps been a little over-egged with his 3-1 here. I don't understand what he's really achieved to suggest he should be so close to Chindit in the betting. The track will be no issue to Chindit. The ground will be no issue to him. He goes well fresh. There's loads to like about him. He's by far the best horse in the race. He's clear top rated. My God, he honestly should be a 1-3 shot, and you're going to get 8-11 about him. I'd take that all day.
I am so here for that. I think that is the bullishness that we love about Daryl. Then
he's an odds-on shot though,
but he should be a stronger odds-on shot though. That's exactly it for Chindit then, who heads the race on ratings and as the market leader then. And Daryl thinks that there is some value there. Rory, please agree on this basis now.
Well, I agree that Chindit is the one to beat, but my view was that I couldn't be confident backing him at 8-11 because there are reasons why there might be improvement to come from Bielsa and Royal Champion. They've got different profiles. Bielsa's stepping up to a mile for the first time, having looked in his last 2 starts last season like he wanted it. And he's also a course winner here from a yard that does very well with horses with his kind of profile. And Royal Champion didn't get home twice last season over trips in excess of a mile. He had a big reputation this time last year. He's very well bred. He shipped well for a long way in the Field and Stakes, which threw up plenty of winners last year. But then went backwards from that when beaten in the Dante. Despite the fact that his pedigree screams that he wants a 1.25 miles, on both those occasions, he looked like a non-stayer to me. And I thought he might improve a fair bit this season, racing over a mile. Without doubt, Chindit is the most solid of the 3. We're not even including Tempest in that. And essentially, he ran to the same level on pretty much all his starts last year, just falling short in Group 1 company. So the fact that he doesn't get a penalty because he was hitting the bar in better races than this means that he's, as Daryl says, he's absolutely blindingly obvious. But I'm just a little bit wary of backing horses with the class edge at this stage of the season when you're not entirely sure what fitness edge they have. And with Royal Champion and Bielsa both representing yards who tend to start the season really strongly, and with the potential to improve at a mile when they weren't racing at a mile last season, I thought this was potentially trappy. So although I don't want to be against Chindit, I wasn't sure whether 8-11 was value. It's a very difficult race to price up in my view. I think Daryl's argument that Chindit should be even shorter has a degree of merit in it on the basis of what he was doing last season. If these 3 met 6 months ago, there's no doubt who would win the race. But at the start of the season, given the potential for improvement of the other 2, I think it's a tricky one. The potential they have to improve doesn't mean they will improve. You know, they were Royal Champion obviously was a little disappointing in 2 runs last season, despite that reputation. And Bielsa was beaten in a handicap over 7 furlongs in his final start. So the pair of them have got plenty to find with Chindit. we expect they might improve because of the profiles and the trainers who have them. But it's difficult to be adamant about any of those things. I just think all those factors added up to a race that I didn't want to bet in at the prices. If Chindit was odds against, it would make it easy to get involved. That's not going to happen, clearly. And yeah, I can absolutely see Daryl's point of view, but I see traps in here. Maybe I shouldn't see traps, but I do.
No, Rory, the voice of reason, Delargy, is completely what you are then in a trappy little race. Just keeping Daryl and I grounded though for the start of the season, so we don't get too above ourselves with the flat. But it is a tricky contest then to assess. But if Chindit, like you say, if it was kind of midway through the season, then take that 8 to 11 all you want and run with it. But yeah, just maybe be aware of a few potential pitfalls there for the 3:35 then at Doncaster. We're on to the big one now. This is the Lincoln, which is a heritage handicap for 4-year-olds and over a mile. It's unsurprising really that 4-year-olds are to the fore here in the betting with their cracking record in this race. So Rory, back to you please to solve the Lincoln.
Yeah, I used to look at the Lincoln in a different way to I do now. Just looking at last season's form, looking at which horses would be ready early in the season, who might have dropped to good handicap marks, who might have been progressing at the right time last season and have this as a very suitable race. But it's just, the Lincoln's changed massively in the last decade. It now just goes to group horses. And I think that's maybe the reason why there's been so few entries this season. When I was a lad, there'd be 120 entries in the Lincoln, and most of those would stand their ground, and anyone who had a handicapper rated 65 or higher would want to run here. And now, as we see with only 9 runners in the consolation race, most trainers with middle of the road handicappers don't think it's worth running in a race like this, because they know that the big stables and the big owners will have potential Group 1 horses there on 9 stone, and that makes it difficult. And as a result, rather than trying to, there are 1 or 2 horses here I quite like at biggish prices. Rogue Bear, for example, is a horse that I had in my mind as a handicapper to follow last season. He dead heated on his final start at Nottingham. You can knock holes in that form, to be perfectly honest, but I thought he was a horse who would progress well from 3 to 4. But he's almost too exposed after 3 handicap starts in a race like this. You really want to have something that the handicapper has very little idea about. And I just find myself looking at Mujtaba and Salem as the obvious pair in the race. They've got similar profiles. They both come from yards who've got a lot of ammunition for races like this. They both are unexposed. Mujtaba only made his debut at the end of August last year. He's had 1 handicap run, and he won well at Redcar. I know Daryl's mentioned that race already. The runner-up shaped particularly well there. But Mujtaba won it in very good style, looked very straightforward, did nothing wrong in the race, and is clearly going to progress from 3 to 4. He's in exceptionally good hands. I know William Haggas has already compared him to a Dabe, who won this race a few years ago before going to be one of the best horses in the world. And while you couldn't be sure that Mujtaba could go that high, he gets in here with 9 stone against exposed handicappers largely, and it's hard to get away from him. I also thought, looking at the shape of the race and where the pace was, I thought being low here would be an advantage. I think depending on what Maurice Diamond does, Maurice Diamond could really set the race up among the high numbers because he's got the class to set the pace for a long way. But if he doesn't pull them through until the last furlong on the stand side, then I think the high numbers seem to have both pace and class there, and I think they'll help each other. So Salem's obviously a danger coming back from wind surgery. He's obviously got to be on the short list as well. But I think the deciding factor might be the fact that although Mujtaba's up £8 for winning that handicap at Redcar, Adam Farraher rides him, claiming 5. He made a big impression on me last season. He had a lot of experience before he joined William Haggas as an apprentice in Ireland. And he was given plenty of opportunities early in mid-season. And then from late summer onwards, he started banging in the winners. He gained an awful lot of confidence. The chances that he was given by his boss seemed to give him the confidence to ride at a higher level. And come the end of the year, he was looking tremendous value for his claim. Still able to claim 5 now. I don't think that's going to last until the summer. And that definitely helps offset his rise in the weights. And obviously that was just his only handicap start, and he's clearly going to progress further. So, it's very unoriginal, but I find him hard to get away from. And he's not a terrible price. You look at the horses who've won this in recent years, you're genuinely looking at a couple of several group horses have won it. And you're not always getting bad prices about those either. And retrospectively, what price should a Dabe have been when he won it? I think it pays to be blindingly obvious with the Lincoln these days, which saddens me, because it used to be a race that was worth spending a week looking at 30 or 40 horses and trying to find some kind of edge in the draw, in the pace, in the pattern of horses' form. Now you're just looking for what's going to be running in a Group 1 in 2 months' time.
Yeah, and if anyone does know Rory's normal tactics then for these types of races, it is very rare for him to find the blindingly obvious as well. So it just probably speaks volumes of what the Lincoln is nowadays. And you've really shut down the point I was going to throw back at you as well, Rory, with the low draw as well, then for a couple in 2 and 3 for Mujtaba and Salayem as well, because I didn't know if that was going to be a slight inconvenience for the pair of them. But if they've got that pace down there, that may just counteract it, and that you've just shut me up without me even having to ask the question really of it.
Obviously, I could be horribly wrong about that, but there's my reading of the race. There's not much speed in the middle. Mostly hold up horses in the middle. There's going to be speed from Johan and from Salayem, and both Mujtaba and Irish Admiral is drawn lowest of all. Would look to track the pace as well. So I can see that quartet just tracking across to the middle of the course, which is probably as good a place to be as any. And I think they're going to be well positioned. Whether that's enough to win them the race, I don't know, but I wouldn't see it as a negative at this stage.
Yeah, definitely not then as a negative, and well argued therefore. Daryl, low or high draw, who do you side with, or middle?
I do like high draw. I do like a high draw here. I totally respect what Rory said, and it's a shame because I was kind of trying to use the low draw as a negative to take on the couple at the top of the market.
Same. That's why
it is slightly frustrating. I'm in the same boat really as Rory. I do like this Mujtaba at top of the market. I don't think he's a horse that wants to make his own running. I think, although I said he had the run of the race at Redcar, I don't think he's a horse that really wants to make his own running. I just think that those horses were not good enough to go with him. I think he'll relish a really strongly run race. I think he'll get a bit further in time. The fact that he won round Chester just should mark him down as a good horse, because that track shouldn't be suiting him whatsoever. Yeah. Look, he does need to progress. He is at the top of the market, and he is drawn low. He's potentially the Group 1 horse in the field for me. I do like the likes of Modern News and Salayem. I do like back from a wind operation. I just wonder, switching back to turf, I don't know, as the sort of improvement come from switching to your weather or not. Those question marks just don't like having lingering over me. It could be absolute nonsense that I'm saying now, but I just don't like the question marks lingering over me. Notre Belle Bete is an interesting horse, but again, is that improvement come from switching to your weather? I can't really see how he's extremely well handicapped off 92 on the balance of his form. I was going to take a little bit of a stab at Ametist, William Haggs' other runner in the race at a double-figure price, just on the basis that I think he's a horse that we've not seen the best of yet, and I think he's been desperate to be going over a mile in his career. Now, he did in his last start, and he finished third in the Cambridgeshire meeting. In the Cambridgeshire, I thought that was a cracking run. That was Cheek Pieces' first time. This is only his second start in Cheek Pieces. There could be a little bit more to come there. The time before he disappointed at York. He disappointed a couple of times last season, but it was just in the space of a couple of months. And I'm just wondering if there was something wrong at that point in time, because he looked like a potential group horse prior to that. The way he was finishing off his race over 7 was just suggesting that his horse was going to be much, much better over a mile. Again, he goes well fresh. William Haggs did give him a good mention actually when they were interviewing about the favourite for this race, and he did say that Ametist is working really well. So those little things have given me a little bit of confidence. I just think there's more to come from it. I know there's a 4-year-old factor in here, but they have dominated this race in terms of numbers over over the last 10 years. You know, it's hard for them to be out of the frame, in all honesty. You know, he's a 5-year-old. I might just take a small chance at double figure price, but I'd be very, very terrified whatever I'm backing, you know, against the likes of the Haggis #1 horse. And even Modern News, I think, is a very smart horse. He's got more to come. He could improve off the back of that Maydown run last time, which was actually quite encouraging. Pine Storm Damage. There's loads of quality in here. And look, Rory, it's a little bit frustrating because I kind of wanted to make a case for the likes of What's the Story at a massive price and, you know, get excited about things like that. but you just can't. Ametist each way. Hopefully he hit the frame at the very worst.
Yeah, 16-1 then Ametist for William Haggis. But yeah, I mean, personally, I agree with everything the pair of you have both said, where I was really trying to take on those at the head of the market for all they tick an awful lot of boxes. But it was mainly the low draw factor that I was trying to side against. But Mujtaba and Modern News, it is tricky to get away from those two. And Mujtaba, as you both said, probably is the group performer in this lineup. But the one who I'm also going to give a stab to at an each way price there of 12-1 is Darkness, believe it or not, on stable debut for David O'Mara. Horse previously based with Jean-Claude Rouget, where he's had 9 career starts, winning 3 times. We've seen this race won by stable debutants before, notably from this yard, Bravery in 2017, where he joined David O'Mara from Aidan O'Brien. So we know that this yard can do it. And he's also drawn well, I hope, in 20, where, as I say, middle to high is where I was really looking to be drawn. It's difficult to know how he's going to be ridden on this stable debut, but fortunately, that's not a hugely significant trend that I've noticed in the Lincoln previously anyway. And he's a 4-year-old, where, as you've just said, Daryl, for all that they chuck the most, they take the most of these runners do tend to be 4-year-olds nowadays, hence why they have such a good record. I still think that will be, I still want to side with a 4-year-old nonetheless. So he ticks enough boxes for me to want to take him on stable debut.
Sorry, Kay, he's a horse that could really appreciate the way British races are run. Because, in his runs in France, he's being held up and off a steady gallops and turns into sprints, and he's getting outpaced and he's staying on again. He's got an interesting runner, actually.
Yeah, hopefully so. So thank you very much. Yeah, he is, like you say, normally held up, and then he just normally comes out with a late flurry when they quicken it up. So hopefully, if this is well run, he will be staying on there in the finish. So Darkness for me at 12-1. Now, that is all of us covered for our scheduled races from Doncaster. So Daryl, I'll throw it back to you, please, for anything else from Donny.
No, nothing. It's too early in the season for me to really...
We'll give it time.
I'll just back Chindit, and I'm just hoping for the best this weekend, I think.
To be fair, that's a good opener. That's a good opener to the flat season. Rory, anything else from Doncaster?
No, listen, the only other race I looked at Doncaster was actually the Brocklesby, because, you know, it's such a traditional sort of curtain raiser to the season. You're not looking at form, you're just looking at pedigrees and trainers to get their horses ready and that kind of thing. And the horse that I liked among the entries was Kiss and Cuddle for Dave Evans. Concern with him is he's drawn 1. And it's not so much that it's a low draw versus a high draw, it's that he's right out in the wing for a horse who's never been on a race course before. And what often happens there, horses are on the outside will duck towards the outside as well into they tend to run into daylight, so he could end up getting detached from the other runners in the early stages. On the flip side of that, Dave Evans's 2-year-olds tend to be more clued up than most trainers. So if he's able to get away on terms and sort of cut across to the other runners, I think Kiss and Cuddle's got the ideal pedigree for this. He's a half-brother to at least 2 first-time out juvenile winners over 5 furlongs. Very speedy family. The dam was very precocious and didn't train on. And of course, John Egan, who rides, you know, he won't lack for experience in terms of dealing with a juvenile first time out as well. So Kiss and Cuddle's interesting. He's probably going to be about 4th or 5th favorite there, but he might just be the archetypal Brocklesby horse in the race.
Yeah, and I've literally, just as you say that, I've just found some prices. 7-2 then for Kiss and Cuddle with one firm anyway. So yeah, plenty of unknowns. So extra curricular points then for you, Rory, for going into the pedigrees of those in the Brocklesby. I didn't even bother, so I will weigh in with you on that basis. So we will switch then. We'll leave Doncaster behind, and we will go to our second meeting then of the day. We now switch it up. We head to Kelso, where we're looking at a couple of races. So good for you for the jumps fans. We're back over the obstacles again here. The first race of which is the 135. This is a series final handicap hurdle for 4-year-olds and over 2 mile, 4.5 furlongs, where we have plenty of declared runners for this race. So, Rory, your idea of the winner, please.
I'm not sure whether it's my idea of the winner, but my idea of the best each way bet in the race is Goodtimes, Badtimes.
Okay.
He's maybe a little bit of a monkey. He hasn't seemed to go through with it absolutely on his last 2 starts. But the most recent of those was over further here, last time out on heavy ground. But he's perfectly effective on a sounder surface as well. He travels very strongly in his race. He tends to be the last one off the bridle, but both at Newcastle and at Kelso in his last 2 starts, he's just looked to jib it a little bit off the bridle. In saying that, if he's the last one off the bridle here, you're not going to kick him out of the frame. He did win an air early January. He's got talent, and he started off in handicaps off a low mark. He's been in the frame in his last 5 starts this season, well, all the starts this season. And given that he was starting off a mark of 85, that's pretty good. All his runs have come in big field handicaps. He has caught the eye every time. He's risen a fair bit in the weights. He's up to 97 now. So he's risen 12 pounds over those 5 runs. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that he's a 120 horse if he wants to be.
Yeah.
And in a race like this where he's running off that kind of mark, I can see him just tanking through it. And it's just a case of whether you trust him to put it to bed off the bridle. But his form figures have been improving through the year, as in, his performances have been improving. And so have his figures on the clock as well. His last 2 time figures are very solid, even though it looked like he should have won both times. And if he keeps running to that kind of level, he's going to fall in, even if he's not that keen to do it himself. So he looks a really solid each way bet. And I think he's more than capable of winning off his mark. And indeed, I think he's capable of winning off a good stone higher than this, if he wants to. So the race will be run to suit. There's tons of pace on here. He has made the running in the past. He made the running over course and distance on a seasonal reappearance, but he's been held up a little bit off the pace. He might actually benefit from an exaggerated waiting ride. From what I've seen of him, he's almost got there too soon in his last couple of starts. He's got there looking like he's going to win the race, and then he's had too much time to think about it. I think if Ed Austin can just let him creep into this race slowly, I think this pace will collapse late in the day. And the key to this horse might just be coming as late as possible. And if that is the case, then he could easily win it at a fair price.
And like say, and almost sort of kidding him into winning his race then, like, because he's got the ability then to be defying that mark. It's just the ride then he may well get. Yeah, he's done well to find that many runners this season, really, to be facing, to be honest. So he's managed to do it again here, but like say, it may well suit him on that basis. Daryl, your assessment of this Kelso race?
Oh, I've got no assessment, in all honesty. Rory's absolutely sold me on Good Times, Bad Times. But this is like, I honestly don't know how this is a class 2. I know this is a series final, but my goodness me, this is not a class 2. This is a 0 to 120 at best, and there's only one horse rated above 114. So, it's not for me, Kate. I thought I'd swerve this one.
That is absolutely fine. We'll leave you to lumping more on Good Times, Bad Times then as well. And we will move on to the next race at Kelso. This is a 3:15. This is the Mares Novices Handicap Hurdle for 4-year-olds and over 2 miles, where Theatre Glory heads the betting currently as the clear market leader. So, Daryl, back to you, please. Does Theatre Glory win?
I had the intention of saying yes. But then I saw prices just before we come on, and I was quite surprised by this Rose Dobbins RAE DES CHAMPS, the price of this horse. I think this horse looks really well handicapped on the Irish point-to-point winning by 10 lengths over Motown Maggie. That horse is rated, I think, 112 or something like that.
Yeah, spot on, 112, yeah. Yeah,
something like that, 112. Went out to air and just was given a very nice, easy ride introduction to hurdles by Craig Nicol. It was just a really nice ride, actually, and she just stayed on really nicely towards the finish, just literally being taught her trade on the way round. Newcastle next time, behind a horse called Lady Adair, who's rated 130, was only beaten 3 lengths. But again, it was another performance where the horse was asked a bit more. They asked a bit more of the horse, and she was still learning her job, and she found. And I love the way she rallied. She's got a good attitude, this horse. She's gone out to Mustapaa next time, and there was a real good pace on it. Set quite a good time figure, actually, and got ahead in front. May have benefited from the fact that it was such a strong pace on the front end. But the attitude the horse showed just suggests that there's plenty more to come. That was off a mark of 103 on handicap debut, and it's now gone up £4 off a mark of 107. I don't think this race is all that deep in between her, who's the second outsider of the field. I think 14 to 1. I think I saw.
Yeah.
That might not be updated price, but that seems very.
That's most recent I can see. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's not that much between her and Theatre Glory. I love Theatre Glory. I love the profile of Theatre Glory. Mark 129 is very, very steep for what she's achieved, really. But Nathan Brennan takes off the 7, which is a brilliant play by Nicky Henderson, effectively off 122. Beat Boomborn on debut at Worcester in a bumper. Won next time out, and then was a really good third behind LA Bell on a horse with no name. Horse with no name's obviously gone out and run a blinder in the Mayor's Novice Hurdle behind Love Envoy. But really didn't even get asked for an effort that day, because jumping the last, it looked as though John Joe was about to ask for the effort, and then the horse fell in front and just hampered her quite a bit, really. So it was just eased off. So it was probably much better than the better result there. And then was a good winner at Warwick next time. So she's definitely going the right way, Theatre Glory. I thought she was going to take all the beating, but I thought RAE DES CHAMPS at an each way price. This horse is definitely going to take another step forward. And I love a horse at this sort of level with a real good attitude. And Rose Dobbins got one on her hands here.
Yeah, you know what? I'm delighted you point out RAE DES CHAMPS here, because I'm in total agreement where I just thought she looked overpriced. I mean, she is few different prices with a few different firms, but the biggest I can see is 14 to 1 at this time of recording as well. And I just think she's been overlooked in the market completely as well, on the basis of managing to get that win then, that win wasn't without her turn anyway.
Yeah,
then
she might not be good enough. She might not be good enough to win, but she'll definitely be sticking on at the finish. So yeah, I think at each way bet, I think she's a fair price.
Yeah, exactly. For Rose Dobbin and Craig Nicol, I do agree. That would be the only one I'd be backing then at that current price in this race. Rory, your assessment of the Mares' Novices handicap hurdle?
Yeah, I'd say, listen, if you can get that 14 to 1 about RAE DES CHAMPS, you should take it. I don't see it lasting.
Yeah.
Interestingly, the firm who go that price are shortest on Aliomaana, and I think she's really interesting here. Again, I wouldn't knock Theatre Glory. I think she's the one to beat in the race. She's a pretty short priced favorite, but her form stacks up pretty well. That Newbury race she was third in, where she was unlucky to not to finish a lot closer. That's really warm form, and I don't think the handicapper's been terribly unkind in giving her 129. I'd prefer to see her in a slightly stronger race and get a better price about her than back her at very short odds. But yeah, she deserves to be favourite. There's no issue with that at all. But my question about this race is how it's going to be run. I'm not sure in terms of RAE DES CHAMPS that it's going to be run at a strong enough pace to bring her stamina into play, because she clearly stays beyond 2 miles. Her runs so far have come at the minimum trip under rules. But her pedigree and her point-to-point background suggests that she wants at least 2.5. She stayed on very late in the day to win at Mostawaa. When she steps up to 2.5 miles, I think she's going to look very well handicapped indeed. But this might not be the strongest run race you've seen. The one who's going to make the running is Aliomaana. And I think Mitch Bastian will look to dictate the pace and use her speed. I think she probably would have gone to the Fred Winter if she got into it. Milton Harris ran her the week before the festival to get a penalty. She won her maiden at Wincanton, but her early season form reads really well. She was a little bit headstrong. She's worn a hood in all her starts, she wasn't the finished article. She fell at Perth when she looked like she was going to win. She won by a wide margin at Perth in September. She was given a mid-season break then after finding conditions against her at Aintree. That was a really tough listed juvenile for mares, where the Irish horses dominated. 4 Irish horses came over and they finished first, second, third, and fourth. The British trained horses with a little bit less stamina in the pedigree couldn't cope with the conditions. It might as well have been a 2.5 miler there, and that's too far for Aliomaana, who wants a sharp test at 2 miles. She then had a while off and came back to win that race at Wincanton. I think a mark of 114 is very fair for her and what she did early in the season. She'll cope well with this track. It's a pretty sharp track at Kelso. Listen, it's stiff enough coming home after the last.
Mm.
That's the worry for her. But generally speaking, it's a course that suits front runners and suits speedy types. And the other issue you have here is that the 4-year-old allowance is still £10 at this stage of the season, which for me is far too much. You know, clearly the juveniles needs they need a bit of an allowance early on to make them competitive against older horses. But once they've had the experience that she's had at this stage of the season, £10 for me is a little bit too much. And I think that gives her a chance with only 10 stone 1. She's not as good as the favourite. You know, I'm not suggesting for a second that she's as good a filly as Theatre Glory is, but she's getting, you know, a stone and £11, not including the jockey's claim. And that might just make the difference, given that she's going to be loose on the lead here. And I think generally at 1, she appeals most to me. There are 3 horses I'd be positive about in the race. I'd be positive about the favourite as well, which is a much shorter price, and she's giving lumps of weight away. And as the pair of you are, I think Rose Dobbin's filly could be the best long-term prospect in the race, but she's going to be even better granted a decent test of stamina, or at least a strong gallop at this trip, and she might not get that today.
Yeah, we're not even going to get the low sun, are we, then, at that time at Kelso, where it might turn into the proper stamina test where they rule out the last 3 hurdles either. So curse the change of the seasons to bring her stamina into play. But no, interesting assessment then of that race nonetheless. So anything else then from Kelso, Rory?
Nothing else at Kelso for me.
Not at all. Daryl?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Nope, we shall move on then to our final scheduled meeting. This comes from Kempton, where we switched to the all-weather now. So we've had everything this weekend, such as the time of year where we have all sorts of racing crossovers. But we begin with the 205. This is the listed Magnolia Stakes for 4-year-olds and over a mile 2, where we have 8 runners. So Daryl, your idea of the winner, please.
Yeah, this is I found this very, very tricky. There's not a lot to split these at all, in my opinion. I thought it was interesting they've stuck blinkers on Zaraqaan. Now he's a horse that offered plenty of early promise. It just might not be good enough at this level, in all honesty. But I think we're going to find out today. Return to Kempton. He's won his 2 starts here at Kempton in very taking style. He obviously likes it here. I didn't think he was totally disgraced at Lingfield last time, but he did weaken away quite tamely behind Alan Kerr and Fancy Man. I think this could turn out to be a bit of a course specialist here at Kempton. I've not got a strong opinion on the race, but I just thought he was the one that could improve on his previous couple of showings at this track. And he's not got much to find with a favourite, Fancy Man. So I thought the blinkers might help. I think he's a bit hard work for his jockey. So hopefully the blinkers will help. And he travels so kindly through his races. It'd just be nice to see him finish off one at Kempton. But not a strong opinion, but I thought Zaraqaan just might be overlooked a little bit in the market at double figure price.
Yeah, let's say 12 to 1, then at least he's got the right man on board. And as you say, with those blinkers then fitted as well, Zaraqaan is the selection for Daryl in the Magnolia Stakes. Rory, you please for this race.
We're kind of back into Chindit territory here with Fancy Man in the same silks for Richard Hannon. And actually, I've got no qualms about Fancy Man in this race. He's got a similar profile in that he's very reliable. He's after trying 1.5 miles last season in the Chester Vase, where I think he's shaped like the best horse. He's shown himself to be, I think, a specialist at 1.25 miles. I know he did win a conditions race over 1.5 miles at Lingfield in September, but he didn't have to be near his best to win that. He was long odds on, and he's ideally suited by this trip. I think he ran the race of his life last time. I know he was only 3rd in the Winter Derby last time out, but the 1st and 2nd from the Winter Derby are absolutely top class horses. And I think he's probably not got the credit he deserves for being beaten 3.5 lengths there, because you know, on a normal running of the Winter Derby, that marks you down as a horse who should be capable of winning listed races. But he was well clear. He's almost 5 lengths clear of the rest that day. Forest of Dean was the next horse there, who's a pretty good yardstick. And I think Fancy Man has shown that he's trained on very well. He's well suited by this sort of trip on the all-weather. He's got the inside draw. We know he's fit. He's thriving. And to me, he's clearly the best horse in the race. And although there are 1 or 2 you could see stepping up, perhaps the headgear will do the job for Zaraqaan. But he was 5.5 lengths behind Fancy Man last time out. And it's hard to see on paper that he should turn that around. As Daryl says, with blinkers, you could see a different horse, and if you're getting a good price.
I think it's more the return to Kempton. I think it's more the return to Kempton for him. He just performed far. He just performed far better at Kempton in his 2 starts when he came here last season, and it was just the jump from the first start at Kempton to the second start at Kempton in terms of he recorded an RPR of 82 and then recorded an RPR of 112. And it's just those little things with him. I think he's quirky. I'm not saying he can reverse the form with Fancy Man, but I think
he's not an ideal Lingfield horse. He's not an ideal Lingfield horse physically.
Yeah,
Lingfield, you need to be very well balanced to handle the final bend. No, a lot of people don't realize just how tricky that bend is, because you're also coming downhill into it as well, and it throws you out into the middle of the track. And he's quite a big, heavy topped horse who wouldn't appreciate the sharp bends as much. So yeah, I can see him doing better. But I do think Fancy Man is an absolutely rock solid proposition this season. And coming off a career best effort at Lingfield, I see no reason why he shouldn't be running to at least that level again. And I think he's not. What price is he?
He is Fancy Man 6 to 4 at the current price I'm looking at. Yeah. Again,
I'd argue he could be a shade of odds on in this race. There are some pretty solid performers in here, but you're mostly dealing with 5, 6, 7-year-olds that you've seen plenty of. There's not an awful lot hidden in this race, and I think if anything's going to progress, it's liable to be Fancy Man. He's the youngest horse in the race. He's got the highest rating, and he seems to be going in the right direction. So for me, he could be odds on, and 6 to 4 is pretty appealing.
Yeah, interesting then that he's in this listed race, and as you say, the 2 horses that then beat him last time out. I mean, Lord North was seeing in the Dubai Turf, then Alan Kerr's going for the Shima Classic, isn't he, on Saturday? The pair of those 2, and the intertwining form lines between him and Al Zaraqaan as well. It's going to be fascinating to see how that race plays out. So a lot more interesting you probably initially think for that race, therefore. So we will now move on to our final scheduled race then. This is the 240. This is a 0 to 100 handicap for 4-year-olds and over 2 miles. So Rory, I will let you lead off our final race, please. Who wins it?
This is the Queen's Prize, which used to be quite a big deal back in the days of turf racing at Kempton, but has rather fallen off in terms of its appeal. But it's still an interesting enough contest. I'm hoping there's a strong pace here, because that will suit Imperium, who was maybe a little bit disappointing last time out at Newcastle, but that came in a small field where the winner, Nate the Great, was a lot better suited by the slow pace than Imperium was. Despite his tremendous pedigree, Imperium being by Frankel out of Oaks winner Ramruma, he lacks a turn of foot. He lacks tactical speed. And what he needs is a well-run race at around this trip. A lot of these horses who are capable of winning 2-mile handicaps at Kempton are just as capable of winning over 1.5 miles. He's not really one of them. He does need a test at this kind of trip. And what often happens in 2-mile races on the all-weather is you don't get much of an early pace, and they tend to become tactical and turn into sprints, which doesn't absolutely suit him. But this looks like it's going to be a race with a fair degree of pace in it. And if that is the case, then I think you'll see a better performance from Imperium. As long as they go hard enough, he will stay on strongly at the end of it. And he's a course and distance winner as well. So although his latest effort looks a little bit underwhelming, I think he's just a hostage to fortune in terms of tactics, and he should have the race run to suit, which should see him back to winning ways or very close to it.
Yeah, back over this course and distance again. Like I say, if he has the pace then to aim at, that should bring Imperium into the reckoning for Rory. Daryl, the is to the fore.
I like All Right Sunshine for Keith Dalglish. Probably waiting to his best now, the 7-year-old, but I think he's been a bit unlucky. I think this is effectively a slight drop in grade in comparison to what he was facing last season. He was a huge eye catcher behind Nicholas T in the Northumberland Plate last year. He got absolutely no run, tanking around the bend off the same mark. And just had to wait for a run and stayed on quite nicely. I think he's been crying out to go back up to 2 miles, run over 1.5 miles. I just think he's a real strong stayer, and I think he was going to get a strong pace to aim at today. And I think he's a horse that likes a pace collapse in his races. He loves to just sit, travel past beating horses and quicken away. There's definitely a race in him. Again, this is a lesser race than what he's been running in last term, and he's got a fair record fresh. So he'd do for me.
All right, Sunshine at 16-1 as well. So really nice price for our concluding race as well then for Daryl. So Daryl, I'll head back to you, please, for anything else from Kempton. No. Rory?
Yeah, I do have one more at Kempton, and I'm very keen on Tommy DeVito, not just for this race, but I think as a horse to follow this season. He's a bit of a late developer. He's a 5-year-old now, again from the Charlie Hills yard, that's doing so well. I went nap on Tommy DeVito when he won over course and distance in October. That was his first run for over a year. And he won in really tough and determined style. Only won by a nose that day. I had to work very hard to get past the leader. Again, was given a 3-month break and won at Southall last time out off a 4-point higher mark. Again, looked very tough that day. I don't think Southall suited him as well as Kempton did, but again won by a narrow margin and showed a very willing attitude. Because he's not been winning by miles in his races, he won by a short head at Kempton. He won by half a length from the well-handicapped Zarzini at Southall. The handicapper's not put him up much. He's up £3 for his latest win, but that's solid form because Zarzini ran really well in his next start. Digital was a winner. He was beating a nose into third. So it's very good form for the time of year. And I think Tommy DeVito will keep improving. And with the yard in form, with his attitudes looking very good over a course and distance he's proven over, he looks a really solid bet to me. And he'd be verging on nap material.
We like verging on nap material. That is pretty bullish then from Rory, to be fair, in the way that he goes. So that's Tommy DeVito, horse number 4 in the 3:55 at Kempton. So anything from anywhere else from either of the pair of you? I know we've had a whole host of different races, but anything else?
No,
cool. All there is to get then is your nap. So Rory, are you tempted to go Tommy DeVito in the 3:55, or are you going elsewhere?
No, I think I actually will stick with Tommy DeVito. I've given myself a strong reminder because I often get caught in the hop when I ask for a nap at this stage. But yeah, Tommy DeVito appears to me to be a horse going places, and he looks well handicapped there. So it's just a case of getting a reasonable price about him.
You've managed to persuade yourself around. Very good then for Tommy DeVito. Daryl, your nap.
Not the strongest of weekend for me, but I'm going to go RAE DES CHAMPS and hope that she gets the strong pace that she needs.
Like it.
Big price, 10-1-ish.
Yeah, like I say, big price nap then for her as well. And I do agree with you in that race too. And me, I'm going to go for the Lincoln because why not? I'm going to go for the 3:35 then Darkness, because why not? When the flat is back, why not play a big stab then in one of the trickiest handicaps of the entire season? So that is going to be my nap. Thank you so much to the lads for all of their hard work. Yet again then on this week's show, we've had an eclectic mix of races across the board, but they've covered them all expertly as per usual. Thank you to SBK for their usual sponsorship. Thank you for watching, and we will catch up with you again next week.